Hello guys, Adam here from Switch Indie Fix, and I'm bringing you episode 29 of the Switch Indie Fix podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything indie on the Nintendo Switch. We're actually recording on a Friday night this time because I have a very busy weekend of studying and doing stuff for the website, so I wanted to get the podcast recorded now whilst I have time before I have to study. This week what we're going to be talking about is the crazy Nintendo Switch sales in Japan, Dead Cell's new upcoming DLC, and I'll be giving you my early impressions of the Sword of Ditto. Plus, you'll have the chance to win a beautiful PowerA Zelda Enhanced Wireless Controller, so just stay tuned for that. That's like a current competition I have going on at the minute. So this is actually the first episode I've recorded in the month of May, which is quite shocking because I've been trying to keep consistent, but yeah, this month it kind of went from super busy to extremely busy, and just in my private life, I'm actually looking to go back to university, so I've been studying for an exam that I have next week, and I also managed to get an internship for a new company, so I've been doing some copywriting stuff for that, which has been really cool, some content creation, it's all writing. And graphics and stuff, so that's really interesting. So that's been keeping me busy, and maybe some of you guys will be able to see some of that on my Twitter in the next week or so if you're interested. But in Nintendo Switch wise, we have a little bit to talk about. Like I said, not too much. I just want to give you all a gentle reminder that we do need your questions for the show, especially on days like today where there isn't so much, or weeks like this week where there isn't so much indie news. If you think of any Nintendo or indie game related questions and want them read out on the show, please head over to switchindiefix.com/SIF Podcast and you can ask them there. Plus, if you're looking for a fun gaming community to join, why not check out the SIF Discord server? Just head over to switchindiefix.com/Discord to join. So, as always, we will start with the news, and this week there is a measly 3 items on the list. That's nowhere near half a baker's dozen. As I said in the intro of the show, the first item is that the Nintendo Switch surpasses PlayStation 4 sales in Japan, which is pretty incredible to believe. But the Nintendo Switch has already sold more units in Japan than the PlayStation 4 has in its entire lifespan. So the PlayStation came out there in 2013, 2014. The Switch came out in 2017, and already the Switch is outselling it, has already outsold its total sales. When you look at the numbers, however, you can see that the Switch is it's not that surprising, because you can see that the Switch is consistently outselling the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro. The latest figures show that between April 29th and the 12th of May, the Switch sold 83,471 units, compared to the PlayStation and PlayStation 4 Pro 17,646 and 12,357 respectively. So the figures for the total Switch sales in Japan are estimated to be at 8.125 million. I actually have I have an exact number. 8,125,637 units sold just in Japan alone, which is pretty crazy, compared to the PlayStation's 8,077,757. Like I said, it's pretty impressive that the Switch is outselling the PlayStation when the PlayStation has been on the market for nearly twice as long as the Switch. I just think it kind of shows how popular portable gaming is in Japan. I remember when I was there in Tokyo, everyone was playing something on their phone or on their DS, and even then there was a few PlayStation Vitas, because it was closer to when the Vita just came out, which is pretty impressive. Living in Vienna, I'm always a bit what's the word? Not anxious, but a bit conscious about playing my Switch on the underground. Not because I'm not worried it's gonna get stolen or anything. I'm just kind of it's getting it out of the bag, turning it on, playing, and then having to turn it off again in 20 minutes. I'm a bit more I'd rather just sit and listen to a podcast. I'm interested to know if you guys play your Switch on your daily commutes, and if you do, maybe send me a picture of whatever you're playing. If you're sat on the bus right now listening to the podcast, or if you're sat on the train, or however, please don't be playing your Switch and driving your car to work. That wouldn't be good. But it'd be cool to see what you guys are playing as you ride in on your commute to work. So story number 2 is Dead Cells Rise of the Giant DLC is coming to the Switch next week. So the indie behemoth Dead Cells is getting a pretty substantial free update on May 23rd. Developers Motion Twin confirmed that players will be able to enjoy a new biome, boss, 10 new enemy types, 10 weapons, 3 new skills, unlockable skins, a new story ending, and a hidden arena, all in their the Rise of the Giants DLC. Remember, all of the DLC is free, and if you already have the game, it won't cost you anything extra to play it, but it will give you a chance to have some new content if you've already beaten the game, or if, I believe, like Age of Boredom, you are stuck on a very difficult boss. It might give you something to divert your attention, maybe hone your skills, and then you might be able to go back and actually finally beat whichever boss you are getting stuck on. Number 3 is an interesting story. Again, it's like related around free DLC, but it's from a game that like less people might have heard of. This story is if you buy Super Crane Magic Zero within its launch window, you'll receive free DLC. So yes, as a thank you to early adopters, Super Crane Magic Zero is giving away a free DLC if you buy the game in its launch window. The free DLC will include 2 exclusive items and a PvP arena to explore. In the US, you can pre-order the game and save 10% between May 16th and May 29th. So, and you also get the free DLC. So if you're in the US or you have a US eShop account, make sure you and you're interested in the game, make sure you pre-order it now and save a bit of money. In the EU, you can pick up the game between May, I think it's May 30th and June 30th, and you will get the free DLC in that period, but you won't get the 10% saving. So if you don't know what Super Crane Magic Zero is, it's an action-packed RPG and has an aesthetic kind of like the Adventure Pals. So it's like very colourful, like all of the items in the game have like a face on them. And there's even like a cupcake in the game that's very reminiscent of Adventure Pals and of what's the Behemoth's game called? Pit People. Is it Pit People? Yeah, I think it's Pit People. Yeah, so it's very like that kind of like quirky Adventure Time look, very colourful. But yeah, if for a bit more of an accurate representation of the game, here's the PR spiel. So it says, hack and slash through a salad with up to 4 players and help rebuild WOTF in a 20-hour plus campaign featuring a melange of handcrafted and procedurally generated dungeons, teeming with places to explore and gear to loot. Save 6 powerful wizards to unlock abilities across 7 strange upgrade trees. Eat most of the items in the world, but remember, just because you can eat whatever you want doesn't mean you won't have to deal with the side effects. And the game's actual release date is May 30th on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting that I guess you could kind of argue it's like a case of what's like the pre-order DLC that you see in like AAA games. Like they do this all the time, where if you pre-order the game, you get like a free skin or you get a free weapon or something like that. I guess we're more used to seeing AAAs doing that, but never indies. I think it's funny as well that like some people are very they're very anti this like pre-order culture, and when AAAs do it, it's kind of like seen as like dirty and kind of like grimy, and it's like, oh yeah, But when an indie game does it, they're kind of like applauded for it, which I think it's cool. Like obviously these indie game developers have a lot fewer resources, and for them to put something out for free is like a lot more of a consequence on their business than it is for like Ubisoft to put something out for free for a pre-order. But yeah, I just thought this was an interesting story. The game does look really cool. It says that you can play with up to 4 players, but I'm not sure if that's online multiplayer or if it's just local. If it's online, that would be really cool. If like a few people got it, if 4 of us got it together and we could all play, especially like with some of our like YouTube friends. Like if we had like a YouTube series with the 4 of us playing through, because it does look like a cool game. Like that's, as always, like that's what caught my eye first, was how the look of the game. Like I said, it's very like Adventure Pals, but it looks a little bit more like hand drawn. Like if I was trying to draw the Adventure Pals, that's kind of how the game looks. But it doesn't look like cheap or like amateurish. But it does. But yeah, I guess it's like its own unique art style. But yeah, it definitely looks like a cool, interesting game, and you can get yourself some free DLC if you pre-order it or buy it within its first month. So yeah, that was our 3 main stories. I do have one tidbit story, and that is SanDisk's. The people that make the SD cards has released its 1 terabyte micro SD card. It's a perfect solution if you keep filling up your Switch with amazing indies. However, it costs a whopping, and it is whopping $449.99 for an SD card. So I believe the story behind SanDisk was that they made this as like a proof of concept to kind of show that they could do it if they wanted to, but that was like a couple of years ago, and I think they were like, yeah, commercially it's not viable, like no one's going to pay however much it costs them to make the 1 terabyte SD card. However, now a couple of years later, I guess they've managed to make their components cheaper or whatever, and actually produce it that some people would buy it. Like I don't know, like if I'd buy it, well, I definitely wouldn't buy it. Like not for $449.99. But I guess people that maybe are like video creators or like artists and stuff that need like massive space. I guess it's more kind of in line with them. I think in a few years, obviously the price, they always come with SD cards, they always come lower and lower and lower. And hopefully that's the case here. And, maybe in like 3 or 4 years, it'll be down to like $100, and it'll be a bit more affordable and a bit more realistic for us normal people. But yeah, so like I said, guys, that was pretty much all the news I could find on indie games this week. If there's any stories you think I missed, just let me know. You can hit me up on Twitter at SwitchIndieFix and tell me some of your favorite indie game stories from the past week. So section 2 of the podcast, as always, is our conversation portion. This week I'm going to be talking about, let me see, I want to talk a little bit about Enter the Gungeon, the Swords of Ditto, is it Mormo's Curse, the Go Digital sale, which is currently running on the Nintendo eShop, and I also want to talk about that PowerA contest. So let's start off with Enter the Gungeon. I actually started playing I downloaded it, I bought it on sale it was probably like a few months ago now, and I've been like kind of slowly playing through the game, and it's just like, I just want to say it's like I think it's like a great game. Like I know some other people have like issues with it, but as a roguelike, I really love the game. Like the gunplay, the bosses, the themes of the game. I think it's really cool. Like I first played it like years and years ago on the PlayStation 4, and it always kind of like resulted in you playing through the game, and you would always kind of like, your guns never felt like different enough, or that you never felt like you got like powerful enough guns that would really make like a change in your run. So it kind of felt like when you were a new player that your runs were always underpowered, and that you were basically destined to fail the run because you could never find anything good enough that was really like a game changer. And usually when you did find a gun that was like legendary level, you would run out of ammo so quickly that you couldn't use it, and it would always result in you being on like the 3rd or 4th level of the game, or the 3rd or 4th floor, and you'd basically be out of ammo and just using like your starter gun to fight off like the 4th level bosses, which is doable like if you're a great player, but like when you're pretty average like me, it's really, really difficult. But since then they've had like lots and lots of different updates and DLC and stuff. And the latest one that came out, which was called, what was it called? Was it something Gunslinger? Gungeon. I'm searching on the internet. Latest DLC. The latest update, which was called A Farewell to Arms. Yeah, has like, I don't think I couldn't tell you specifically what it added but with all the updates as a whole, like the game has changed a lot, and one of the biggest like differences is the what's the word? Not like the combos, but the way like guns work together and how they like evolve. So when you have like a one gun and you pick up another item that is like thematically linked, the synergy between them it changes, and it makes like that gun more effective. So there's like one example where you pick up this gun that's called the Bullet, and it shoots, it's a bullet that shoots guns, which is kind of like, a joke. And then there's another one where you pick up like a shotgun shell that shoots shotguns. And when you have them both together, they synergize and become like one gun that is like, the main gun is the bullet that shoots guns, and then the shotgun is like a rotary item that kind of rotates around you and shoots shotguns when you shoot the normal gun. And just like little things like that. And there's ones where If you have like a flare gun and you pick up a med kit, it like combos or synergizes to be like a first aid kit, so your flare gun is more effective. So just like little things like that are like kind of cool to find in the game. Not really going into it knowing that much about it, and just kind of see what works with each other, and like how items affect guns and how guns affect items. It's really cool, and it kind of like gives you like a foundation to build on. So if you're like, okay, I have this cool synergy, okay, what can I like try and find, or how can I like influence the game to give me something that's going to work with this synergy and make my run even stronger. So that's kind of like another like meta level to the game, other than just like the actual skill of playing it and the like skill of like getting through the levels. And also the what else was the ammo is like, it's much more like it's still limited, but it's much more common than it was. Like I feel like on every floor you're nearly given like an ammo box, or at least one of like there's like a mini ammo box that does like a percent heal, restores like a percentage of your ammo in each gun, or there's a green ammo box that fully restores the ammo in a single gun. And I feel like they're shown off. They appear often enough where it's like, okay, I have this cool room clearing gun with like 300 rounds. I get most of the way through the floor and you're down to like 50 rounds, and then all of a sudden an ammo box will appear, or you can buy one in the shop, which it's kind of cool, because it like, when you get these cool guns you want to use them, and there's nothing more frustrating than finding like a cool boss gun or a cool room clearer that you end up running out of ammo and then having to switch back to like the like worst guns you have, or your starter pistol is always really annoying. So yeah, if you're a roguelike fan and you haven't already checked out Enter the Gungeon, I really highly suggest it. It's on sale quite often, so I'm sure you can pick it up pretty cheap. And yeah, it's just like an evergreen game that they've been adding to for years and years. Like I think the Farewell to Arms is the final update, so I'm excited to see what Dodge Roll go on to next, and what they're kind of like working on, or what they're going to start working on. But yeah, I really what's the word? I've forgotten the word. I really suggest that you pick up Enter the Gungeon. So the second game I've been playing is the Swords of Ditto, The Curse of Mormo, or Mormo's Curse. It's I've played this game a little bit less. Like I'm probably only like two hours into it. I'm like on my third character's life, and it's interesting. Like it's different to how I thought it was gonna be. I kind of thought like, because again it has like these roguelike elements, and I kind of imagined it to be like a kind of like spiritual successor to the original Legend of Zelda game. So where you kind of like have a hub town that you buy your equipment in, you kind of pick up missions or whatever to do, and then I thought, or maybe I'd say more like Moonlighter, like yeah, you have like a home base, and then when you've done your stuff at home in your house or whatever, you go to the dungeon, and then you go into the dungeon and play your way through the dungeon, and you have to see how far you can get without dying. And then yeah, either you die or you get to the end boss and kill the end boss and then beat the game. But so far, from what I can tell, like there is like that dungeon aspect to it, but the dungeon that I've played so far aren't that big. They're only like maybe a couple of rooms, and yeah, I kind of feel like the game, it hasn't really directed me at all into what I'm supposed to be doing. Like you have like a very brief introduction and kind of tutorial at the beginning that kind of explains that you're this Sword of Ditto. So like every 100 years, this evil witch Mormo rises, and in those 100 years also the Sword of Ditto rises too. And the Sword of Ditto is basically humanity's last hope to beat this witch, to beat Mormo. But the Sword of Ditto is always kind of like this destined hero that has like a long lineage, but the Sword of Ditto always never knows who they are until Mormo rises and they have to take her on. So the idea is that like every time you die, you become like an ancestor of the last Sword of Ditto. You're able to pick up some of their traits, some of their like I think some of their weapons as well, some of their traits and like stats. And then from that, you're supposed to then go back into the world and try and take on Mormo again. And there's also like a certain, it kind of like gives you like a level on where you should be to fight her. But yeah, like I said, it's very kind of like, it doesn't really tell you really what to do or where to go. You basically like have this hub town that is really cool because it changes every time you have a new character. So the 100 years, depending on your actions in the character before, it kind of has an effect on the town and how they look at the sort of Ditto, how they look at Mormo, how the town it actually looks, and what kind of creatures are in the town. So like my one right now is kind of like almost like a graveyard, and it's surrounded by like enemy like ghouls and stuff because Mormo is really powerful. So that's like a really interesting twist. But yeah, it's kind of like you wander around, talk to people. They give you quests that you have to do. And yeah, you kind of go off and try and fulfill these quests. And most of them are just sort of like, okay, kill this many creatures, find these many items, and stuff like that. And then other than that, like I just kind of found myself just wandering around the map, not really knowing where I'm supposed to go. Like I found plenty of dungeons. That I just go into and can clear out because, like I said, they're only 3 or 4 rooms deep. But then there's like so many enemies on the map too, where it kind of they seem to be so like higher level than I am. I kind of feel like, okay, am I supposed to be here? Like, am I too low a level? Should I be off grinding somewhere, or am I like missing something? Basically, is how what I'm feeling about the game, because it just kind of feels like I'm wandering around, fighting enemies, completing quests, and then dying, and then pretty much just rinse and repeat again, doing like the same kind of side quests again, fighting the same enemies again, and not really knowing what my purpose in the game is, how I can progress the story. Like I was assuming that you would just go into the same dungeon every time, and like the developer said, it's not procedurally generated, it's like randomly created. So like all the rooms are hand drawn and hand designed by the developer, and then they just basically mix up what order the rooms go in. So, which I think is cool, because I was assuming like, yeah, you'd be going into this dungeon countless times and dying like you do in most rogue games. But yeah, it kind of the main dungeon, it has like a level cap on it, saying like, oh, you should be level 6 to go in here. If you're not level 6, don't go in. And yeah, so I'm kind of like mixed on the game. Like it's been like quite hard to play, because every time I turn it on, I kind of want to feel like, okay, I want to achieve something in it, but I just kind of end up doing the same thing over and over. And like then, you know, if I die and then have to start with a new character again, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like I've invested like half an hour into this character, not got nowhere with them, haven't progressed the story, haven't really leveled up either, because levels take like forever to level up. Like they do cross over your characters, but I think I'm on like level 2, and like I said, I played the game like an hour or an hour or 2. So yeah, it's been a mix, because the art style looks great. Like it really, again, like it's like a blue sky and gaming kind of art style. Like it's very colorful and it pops, and it's like really nice art, like character design and animations. It does have very very long loading screens, which is also a problem. Especially when you're in the town, like every time you walk into a building and then walk out, it takes a good chunk of time to load the town in, which is a little bit annoying. But yeah, I feel like if the game was had a bit more of like a pace to it, and a bit more like, okay, you're into it, you're progressing, like you're growing as a character in the game and as a player, I'd be a bit more forgiving. But yeah, I'm definitely going to sink a bit more time into it, and hopefully it will get its claws in me a bit more, because right now it's kind of like it's kind of so. So yeah, so that is the two games I've been playing over the last couple of weeks. What is not so though is the Nintendo eShop Go Digital sale, which ends on the 23rd of May, which is in a couple of days. Today is the 17th as I'm recording, so I guess that's on Thursday next week. So yeah, so there are some really big indie games on sale there. One example, or a couple of examples are SteamWorld Dig is on. SteamWorld Dig 2 is on sale with 50% off. I think I picked up the original SteamWorld game that was on for like 80% off, and it's on the European store. It's €2.99, like an absolute bargain. Guacamelee 2 is on sale for 30% off, and Castle of Heart, which was like quite a. When I started the podcast, Castle of Heart was like always on, because it was like seen as like this kind of like big indie game that was coming out, and I think it was like exclusive to the Switch. but for some reason it's on sale with a massive 93% off on the eShop. So I think on the European one it's €1.49. So yeah, if you've been kind of like holding out on the game for whatever reason, now is like a great chance to buy it because it is absolutely like cheap as chips. Yeah, and I went ahead and like made a pretty extensive list of all of the gems that are hiding on the sale. I think I searched through 293 games that are on sale at the minute, and since I made the list, even more games have gone on sale. I think it's in like the 330s now. Yeah, and I kind of like sorted them by from $0 to $4.99, from $5 to $9.99, and then from $10 to $20. And kind of, yeah, did I think 20 for each. I think the 10 to 20 there might be less because those were the more expensive indie games and there wasn't as many. But yeah, if you're looking to pick up some bargains, maybe you have some gold points to spend, or maybe you have a voucher that someone gave you, now is definitely the time to go and buy some of these epic indie games. And yeah, if you want to check out my lists, just go to switchindiefix.com and you will see it on the home page. And yeah, the final thing I want to talk about in the conversation portion is I put up my review of the PowerA Enhanced Wireless Controller, which is a wireless Bluetooth controller for the Nintendo Switch. Really impressive controller. Basically in the video's up on YouTube, I compared it to the Pro Controller and kind of did like the pros and cons of each. It's a very interesting video. A really nice controller, like it looks beautiful. It's a Legend of Zelda inspired one. It has like Link riding a horse on it, like a silhouette of him. Really cool looking. It has like all green buttons. It's really awesome, and I am giving it away. So if you're interested in trying to get your hands on the beautiful PowerA controller, just go to my Twitter. It's twitter.com/switchindiefix, or just look me up at switchindiefix. Go to my pinned tweet and just retweet it and follow me, and you'll have the chance to win the beautiful, beautiful controller. So moving on to our final section of the podcast, it is our question section, and my lovely Discord members did not let me down this week. I kind of put a call to arms out in Discord that yeah, there wasn't that much to talk about in the news this week, so I needed some questions, and they delivered with some pretty epic ones. So yeah, let's start off with Benjicon, and Benjicon asks, is the success of indies on the Switch detrimental to bigger third-party titles? I personally rather buy 4 to 5 great new indie games than a port of a 7-year-old AAA game. So that's like a really interesting question, because I think the success of indies on the Switch is detrimental to bigger third-party titles? Yes, I do, because I think when the Switch first came out, it was there was the kind of obvious support from Nintendo with Zelda and 1-2 Switch, and then Mario coming later on in the year. But they also kind of like lent back on indie games, and a lot of third-party developers or publishers were kind of, I think, on the fence and kind of waiting to see how things would play out with the Switch, because like you have to remember during the Wii U days, people were kind of saying that like the Switch was the make or break for Nintendo. Like if their next console was a flop, then everyone thought the following generation Nintendo games would be on Microsoft and be on PlayStation. Obviously, we know now the Switch has been a huge success. But yeah, I feel like at the time, third-party publishers didn't know that. So you saw, I think the main kind of what are they called? Supporters. The main supporters of the Switch were like Ubisoft, because they were making the Mario and Rabbids game. But then you got like EA, and they bought like a really bad port of FIFA 18 to the Switch, and then like the 2K brought like wrestling and NBA 2K, which were also like fine, but not, top quality. So yeah, do I think it's because of them? I think because there wasn't that support, I think like it gave indie games space to shine and to be like, okay, well, yeah, you have like your Zelda and you have Mario, but what do you want to play between those two? Okay, there's not many third-party published games on the Switch yet, so why not try out these indies? Personally, like the Switch for me was like the game, the indies that I'd heard about along like being on Switch or being on Kickstarter all kind of came out on at the same time. And I was like, okay, well, perfect. Like now I can play it on the Switch. I can take it on the go and play it. And I think, yeah, that's kind of how it built since then, because people like saw how successful indies were being on the Switch, how supportive Nintendo were being to indie games, the developers. And yeah, I think it definitely created like a push that then helped convince third-party publishers to develop games for the Switch as well. And yeah, I definitely agree. Like the Switch in some ways is like a nice way to kind of replay old games, like the Resident Evil 4, like coming out in a couple of weeks. Like I'm kind of looking forward to that, because I've never played a Resident Evil game. So and people always say as far as like being the most popular or the best. So like I'm excited to kind of play that and just try it for myself, and having it on the Switch and having it in HD. I feel like I'm going to play it more than I would on my PlayStation. But yeah, I think, Ben, you're definitely right. Like I'd much rather buy indie games than AAA ports. Unless it was like a game I really cared about. Like right now I'm like getting an itch for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Like I've been watching some people stream it, and I'm like, oh my god, this game would be like great on the Switch. Like, you know, if they just up-res it to HD and just put it on, it'd be awesome. Maybe not in handheld mode because the icons might be small, but yeah, I just like love to play through that again. But again, like I guess it comes down to price. Like if they put one Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 out on the Switch and charge $60 for it, like there's no way I'd pay that. And yeah, I'm not sure how much the price is for Resident Evil, because I wouldn't pay $60 for that either. So yeah, like I'd definitely rather play a new indie game than an old AAA game. But yeah, Ben, I hope that answered your question. So question number 2 comes from Tyler at Switch Atlantic, and he asks, what genres of indie titles does the Switch need more of? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like now the library is pretty extensive. And there is like games that whatever genre you're into, you can play, especially indie games. I feel like maybe at the start it was like RPGs. People seem to be missing out on a lot of like good Switch RPGs. But like I swallow. God, I can't talk. I follow Switch RPG on YouTube, and like I've noticed lately that they're just pumping out content with like so many decent and good looking RPGs on the Switch that it kind of makes me feel like people are filling those gaps. Like one I really want to kind of play is Cosmic Star Heroine, and there's also the game that's coming soon. The name escapes me, but it was the one that they had in an indie showcase with the pigs flying in. What was that one called? I can't remember. But yeah, I feel like RPGs were missing, and also like, yeah, with SteamWorld Quest coming out, that was like kind of an interesting game. Like I feel like roguelites are pretty well covered. Obviously platformers are like extensively covered. Metroidvanias as well. We have Lee, who is one of the reviewers at Switch Indie Fix. He's covering a game called Valhalla at the minute, which is kind of like a bartender game mixed with like a graphic novel. And I know towards the end of its life cycle, the Vita just got inundated with graphic novels. So, and I don't think there's that many on the Switch now, so maybe that's going to be like the next wave, like whether or not you want it or whether or not the Switch needs it is debatable, but I think that's probably going to be incoming soon. I've also seen like sports games that's really taking off on the Switch. Like there's like the Super Blood Hockey, kind of arcade hockey version game, looks cool. There's the one Paul was playing on Switch on, the Football Manager game. Was it like Star Football or something? Which is like a really cool take on footballing games, because I feel like on PlayStation and Xbox, like it's so controlled by FIFA and PES that you don't get to see like these mini games, or at least if you do, like you never notice them. Whereas on the Switch, like I'm always a bit more interested when I see something like that pop up on the eshop, kind of, you know, latest games on sale. I'm like, oh, I wonder what this is. Like, is it like a Football Manager sim? What is like, or is it an arcade game, arcade sports game? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're pretty well balanced with genres on the Switch. I feel like, yeah, it's definitely in indie games wise, there's definitely something for everyone there. So the next question comes from Ajax013 or Ajax013, aka Luke. And Luke asks, what makes an indie successful, or why are indies so successful now? I was watching like a Jim Sterling video today, Jim Pression's video on a game called Plague Tale, which is like a triple I indie game, which is kind of in the vein of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, where a mid-tier publisher and developer basically made a game that, like, you know, it has like beautiful graphics, but it's not like the highest quality graphics, and it's not like the longest game, and it's a linear game. They made it, and he kind of says like it was like a perfect game for what it was, and he really enjoyed it. And I think that's the thing with indies. It's like they some of them can like look at the video game industry and kind of like fill in gaps and be like, okay, well, AAA publishers aren't making games like this, so we should make a game like this. Or they can look at the past and be like, well, this franchise has been dead for a long time. Let's make our own spiritual successor to this franchise and hope people like it, which is like how, you know, like Shovel Knight became so successful. And yeah, I think as well it's down to the marketing from Nintendo. Like I said earlier in Ben's question, like Nintendo leaned heavily on indies at the start of the Switch's life cycle, and so did PlayStation at the start of the PS4's life cycle. But as PlayStation became more successful, they kind of moved away and became more of like the PS3 PlayStation, whereas Nintendo seems to be going even deeper into like backing indie devs and supporting indie games. So obviously that helps a lot. I think the Switch itself is kind of like the successor to the Vita, and the Vita was always seen as like the indie machine because you know, it could play like it was like a powerful handheld which could play pretty, you know, in big games like Uncharted, Golden Abyss, and Persona 4 and stuff like that. But it could also was powerful enough to play these indie games. So I kind of think it gives people like me a revenue to play indies, because I'm not a PC gamer. Like I only have my Mac, and like I was trying to play the Pokemon trading card game on it before, and it sounded like a jet engine, so I had to turn it off. And so it gives me like a means to be like, oh, okay, this indie game that I've seen on Twitch or on Steam, or I've seen a YouTuber play it, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that looks cool. I don't have Steam, I can't go and buy it now, but you can be like, okay, well, it's probably gonna come to the Switch, and as soon as you Google it, you're like, ah, cool, they've already announced that it's coming to the Switch, or it already has a release date. So I think, yeah, it definitely gives people like a way to access indies that they might not have done before. Obviously, like I think the PlayStation did as well. But I think with these smaller games, there's just something to just being able to like lie on the sofa and play them whilst you watch a streamer or whilst you watch TV, or just like I said before, just go on a train and play it for like 4 hours. Like there's nothing like I love more than like traveling for a long time than just sitting and playing my Switch for a couple of hours, because, you know, you can just kind of sit there, relax. Especially with indie games, like if you play like 2 or 3 hours of an indie game, usually that's like a big chunk of the game you've worked your way through. So it kind of gives you like that feeling of like, okay, I've achieved something in the game, like I'm getting towards the end, or I'm getting towards halfway. So I think it's like a mix of all those things that makes them so successful, and maybe why they're so successful now. And our final question comes from Bastian from our Discord server. And Bastian asks, how would the Switch scene look without indies? How would the indie scene look without the Switch? So I'll answer kind of the first part of the question first. How would the Switch scene look without indies? I definitely don't think it would be as strong as it is now. I don't think the Switch would have had as big of a kind of like impact on the gaming world as it did. Yeah, it had Zelda, which is obviously like a phenomenal game, and I feel like it's a game that looked at everything around it and was like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it even better than most of like the other open world RPGs. And I also think it's a game that these RPGs are now looking at and be like, oh, okay, how can we make our games more like Breath of the Wild? And there was obviously Mario again, which, yeah, I think I don't know. Mario, I kind of feel like people loved it, and now they've kind of like mellowed out on it a little bit, and it's kind of like, you know, it's obviously still popular because it's Mario, but as a game, I don't feel like it has that lasting effect like Zelda has. And yeah, those first couple of months, there was a lot of big titles like Splatoon and ARMS, 1-2 Switch, I guess. But then after that, there was like a dry period after Mario for a couple of months where nothing really came out, and that's when you got like Golf Story, and that's when indies really started to shine. So I think indies definitely kept the momentum of the Switch going. I feel like now they are like a huge selling point of owning a Switch. So like I said before, like Nintendo definitely leans on that in the marketing, and rightly so. I feel like. So yeah, I definitely don't think the Switch would be as successful now if it as it is if it didn't have indies in it. And yeah, how would the indie scene look without the Switch? I was kind of thinking about this the other day. Like, I feel like, 5 years ago, Kickstarter was like this huge, like, revolutionary wave for crowdfunding games for small developers to get funds to make their games. And then it kind of like tailed off to where people were like, oh yeah, it's kind of dead, and yeah, people don't seem to make the money on it anymore, and blah 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 blah. But now I feel like with the Switch, just like having the kind of stretch goal or a Switch version is like such like an easy way for people to back it. And we kind of joked about it a few episodes ago about like the hashtag Switch Corps, but those guys do like a lot of help for small indie devs that are trying to get their games on Switch. And I get tagged in them maybe once or twice a month in like long lists of just @ on Twitter of like, oh, please support this game because we want to get it on the Switch. So I think like the Switch is definitely like a means for indie games to actually get made, because indie devs can make money on it. They can kind of like advertise that they're trying to make if they're trying to produce a game, they can advertise that it's coming to Switch, and that if you want to support them to get it on the Switch, then you should back the Kickstarter. And like I said, with indies kind of tailing off on the PlayStation, there might not be really a platform for them to kind of to put them on a pedestal like the Switch does. Like, I know Xbox also has like their Xbox ID, which is very like supportive too, and they have their own kind of like handpicked devs that work with them. Like the Behemoth is one of them, and yeah, they brought Castle Crashers to the Switch. But I'd love to see them bring Pit People as well, which I was talking about before. So yeah, I don't know. I think without the Switch, it would be a worse world for indies. I think it definitely has had like a big effect on indie games and how people think about indie games and think about how they should develop them, making them for the Switch, making them accessible, making them easy to play in short bursts. And yeah, that was a really interesting question, Bastian. So thank you. So yeah, guys, I'm going to round off the episode there. That has been episode 29 of the Switch Indie Fix podcast. Thank you to everyone that tunes in and listens. Like I said at the start of the show, I'm sorry that there's been a pause, such a long pause between previous episodes. Like I said, it is been pretty hectic for me. But that hecticness might pay off next week, which if it does pay off, I will be talking about it in the show. So I look forward to hearing about that. Yeah, the podcast will go up on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as soon as I can after the show. So please be sure to review it wherever you can. If you want to get in contact with me, just hit me up on Twitter or Instagram @ Switch Indie Fix, or come and join the Switch Indie Fix server at Switch, not at Switch Indie Fix, but at www.switchindiefix.com/Discord. This week on the website, we have a couple of reviews that have gone up. The first one was my Duck Game review. So if you are interested in that, make sure you go check it out. And the second was Lee's review of Venture Kid, which is kind of like an ode to Alex the Kid and Mega Man. So yeah, if those games sound interesting to you guys, make sure you go to Switch Indie Fix to check them out. Yep, thank you very much for listening. Remember to enter the PowerA contest if you're interested, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.